Hello everyone, Richard here to do some more theory crafting for Ultimate Mode. Probably going to be a fairly long video because I'm going to go over my PowerPoint slides. Then I'm going to start a new Grand Campaign in 41 and I want to show you how my core is doing. Because I think it's doing well, but we'll see. This isn't as technical as I probably would like it to be because it's difficult to get good mathematical objects in Panzer Corps. So probably the best thing that one could do is to literally track XP and kills after every scenario for every unit for multiple players, and then store that in an Excel sheet, and then you would have more objective evidence on how people are doing. But that's a huge pain in the ass. I can't do that for other players, and I don't have the time for it, even if I did have the ability. It would be cool if in Panzer Corps 2 they stored key information in a bit file so you could extract it later. But it seems like if you really want to break the numbers down, you'd have to remember after every scenario to literally type into an Excel sheet all of the relevant numbers. So there's not going to be a mathematical model or anything here. It's going to be general observations, some of which might be inaccurate. So let's get into that. So here's what's happened so far in 39. So decisive victories are possible at Poznan. Bricata led the way. I improved upon his approach. I seized every objective but the two central ones, and I wiped out every unit but the two central ones. I find that to be really insane. And I thought decisive was completely out of the question at Poznan, but Bricata's like, nonsense. That's of course possible. Danzig North, Goose bit the bullet. You're gonna hear this a lot from me. He bites bullets for everybody else. He showed that a decisive was possible at Danzig North. I am not convinced it was worth it, but Goose would say it's for science. So I have proven that a decisive is possible at Danzig South. It is both possible purchasing level bombers and tactical bombers. That is a very important point. At the end of the day, you're either going to destroy units or you're going to suppress units jammed up against the river and force a bunch of surrenders, or outright kill them. In my current playthrough, I'd use level bombers because I wanted experienced level bombers for later in 39, and I think that really paid off for me. But if you like wide-scale destruction and you wanted to have a more tactical bomber approach, then feel free to buy some for that scenario. In order to pay for all that, I sold my tanks and anti-tank units. I am much more reluctant to use Panzer 1s than everybody else. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I like my results, but I'm sure Bricata likes his results as well. So I think it's still kind of up in the air if that's a good idea. I have shown quite comfortably that a decisive at Piatic is possible. I think the first time I played, I showed that a decisive was possible. I should mention, anyway, Bricata has shown that a decisive is possible as well. I still think my approach at Piatic is superior. I've actually done better than Soren at Piatic, who showed a map wipe. I've actually been able to map wipe Piatic and farm Piatic. And I just use Soren's method slightly more aggressively, and it works out just fine. So Piatic is a solved scenario as far as I'm concerned. Wizograd, Goose bit the bullet again and showed that a decisive was possible. Was it worth it? It depends. Are you thinking about long-term core issues, or are you thinking about for science? So I'm just, it's crazy, but he proved that it was possible. That's all I got to say about it. Go watch his attempt. It's pretty wild. Warsaw is possible. I find it interesting that Bricata's approach worked and is in fact more prestige gaining. He also gets the capturable unit than my approach. But I think my approach is objectively best for making yourself immune to bad weather and not relying on rolls. I think the RNG on the rolls is significantly reduced with my approach. And the biggest differences between us is that I had experienced overstrengthened pioneers, and I immediately focused on a 2-vector attack on Warsaw from the north and the south, and I quickly collapsed a huge front so my forces could link up and then do the hard grind towards the final objectives. I also was much better at pulling units out of major hexes by offering auxiliary units as bait. It was devastatingly effective, and I think that Bricata, if you were to try Warsaw again, would probably do even better with that approach. Bricata, of course, did the traditional approach where he went around the city, grabbed all the artillery. I was absolutely astonished that it worked, but I would point out that it barely worked. The margin of error there is not much. So I still feel like if the decisive is absolutely a must-have, my approach is best. But there's actually, you could improve upon my approach. It's not totally solved, but the core concept of my approach is still very solid. Bricata did the impossible again and proved that a decisive was possible at Oslo. I would point out, and I think Bricata agrees, it's very weather dependent. If you have some bad weather in the first 2 turns, a decisive is probably not going to happen. If you have, I think, 3 bad weather turns, a decisive is probably not going to happen. So, and there can be a lot of bad weather at Oslo. It could very easily happen. So, Lillehammer Bricata once again proved a decisive is possible. And I believe... I'm trying to remember if he map wiped. I believe he wiped the map. But now for some reason I can't remember. But I did not think that was possible. But once again, Bricata proved me wrong. And he deserves a lot of accolade for that. I have shown a map wipe for Narvik. It's probably my greatest Panzer Corps achievement. It is not easy to deal with the Narvik scenario on Manstein. If you don't believe me, you should try it yourself. A couple of reasons why it was possible. Because I got a decisive at Warsaw, I got Helmut Lent, and Helmut Lent is a beast on that map. He has one job, and that job is to take out the fucking submarine. Because if that submarine is allowed to run wild, your capital ships... an overstrengthened submarine is bad news for your ships. And I set it up cleverly so that Helmut Lent was able to get in some killing blows on the submarine. And Helmut Lent is built to take out submarines. So that was really important. The other thing I discovered is that if I wait to attack Narvik, so I'm set up for it, my auxiliary units are more useful, and then I can sacrifice the auxiliary units on the final push to close in on the city from 3 sides. The other trick I realized is that you can pound key objectives from across the sea with your artillery, which helps reduce entrenchment. And then once you get rid of the AA, your Air Force is free to bomb the hell out of Narvik. The other thing I pulled was that because I killed an artillery piece early, it really disrupts the unit placement at Narvik. So an artillery piece is purchased on the outskirts instead of on the inside, and that allows you to collapse in on Narvik more quickly. And I would point out that I barely map wiped. I barely got the decisive. I needed every single turn, and I mostly had good weather. So it's really, I wouldn't say there's huge amounts of RNG, but there's enough that there's no guarantees. If you have 2 or 3 snowy turns on the wrong turns, then you're not gonna map wipe. So next, Lodz. Bricata, I think, has solved the map for a marginal victory. I don't think it's robust to 2 turns of rain, but if you're getting 2 turns of rain on an 8-turn scenario, you're just fucked. I mean, there's just no, I think that it's just not going to happen. So, and he actually really impressed me. He managed to take all but 1 major hex. He didn't take Lodz itself. And I don't think there is a way to take Lodz. So check out his Lodz. It was very impressive. just he's just always Bricata always impresses me. Um, I have tried Campanaska. I could not make any progress at getting a marginal victory. Bricata didn't really try. He just went for prestige and experience. He thinks it might be possible. I'm very skeptical. I think there's way too many units. I think the terrain is not favorable to the player. You can't move units quickly. So the biggest problem with this map is there's a lot of ground to cover. And you have to cover it quickly, but you can't move things in trucks because there's cavalry that are going to spot it and then they're going to attack. And they can move through the forest more easily. So this is probably the only scenario thus far where I'm not sure a marginal victory is possible. And then I don't think a decisive is possible at Modlin, and probably not Spoils of War. You know, Modlin, you're given 12 turns, and it's already really tough on Rommel. When you start throwing in the Manstein effect, where the fortresses are massively overstrengthened, if you try to approach the city uber aggressively, you're going to lose units. So I don't think it's possible. Spoils of War is highly, highly unlikely. You know, maybe if you memorize troop placement and you had nothing but clear weather and you got a couple of good rolls here and there, it might be possible. But I'm very skeptical. In 17 turns, I think it could be done. In 16, I'm not so sure. You probably would need to have a lot of armor, so I couldn't really replicate Bricata's approach because I had one tank. So when you only have one tank for that scenario, a decisive is not happening. So you probably need 3 38Ts that are overstrengthened and ready to rumble. Synopsis of 1940. Decisive victories are possible at Amonimel. I showed a map trick that made that possible. Actually, I grabbed most of the objectives at Abonimel. So it's definitely a scenario to gain tons of prestige. It's definitely possible at a Ross. I should mention that Goose also showed a decisive. But my approach is more robust and repeatable. And you don't really need to re-roll for or reload for rolls. Goose and I have shown at Calais a decisive is possible. My approach is once again repeatable and very robust to bad weather and some other things. And it's just and you can do a little bit of farming with my approach at Calais. And then Wasigny, Goose has shown a decisive is possible, but probably not worth it. I have shown a decisive as possible at Dunkirk. I actually did it in 11 turns. I'm very impressed by that. And I showed a decisive as possible at Reims. Reims is extremely easy, and you can gain a ton of prestige on that map. So that map is essentially solved with some minor improvements. Marginal victories are easy for Albert Canal, The Hague, Sedan, Maubeuge, Stone, and Amiens, and Dijon. I don't think a decisive is possible at Albert. I am absolutely convinced there's no way in hell you can do it at The Hague. And I also believe it's impossible to get a decisive at Sedan. I also think it's impossible to get a decisive at Maubeuge. And I would be shocked if a decisive was possible at Stone. And I'm still waiting for Goose on Amiens, but let's just say I'm very skeptical it's possible. And as far as Dijon goes, it might be possible, but probably not worth it. Because if you watch my playthrough of it, I barely got the marginal victory. And I was pedal to the metal, full metal jacket crazy. And it took every turn and careful calibration of distributing my air force. I had to do reckless things with my tanks and infantry, and it worked. And I was lucky that I didn't get any bad weather in the final few turns. But I don't know if a decisive is possible at Dijon. Marginal line, I didn't press too much. I wasn't too interested in taking a lot of damage for that scenario. A marginal is probably very possible. I will save that for Bricata to prove. But I think it's absolutely impossible to get a decisive. I think Bricata showed on Manstein he did it in like 14 turns, where he was set up for the decisive. There's no way in hell he's going to do it in 11. it's he would have to be willing to sacrifice units, I think. Uh, I think it's an open question on whether the other ones have a decisive, but I'm very skeptical. So let's move on. 3 approaches. Goose. He relies on traditional Goose methods, which means he believes in artillery. He loves strong units. He's going to use that to form his little attack vector. And he very much is all into surrenders still. I point out he likes to attack well beyond the safety zone. Like he recklessly surges forward, and I say attacks to the point of absurdity. He does some pretty wild stuff that are probably not efficient, but he does it for science. I think that he relies too much on intuition and struggles with repeatability. Okay, so this is going to sound weird, especially if you look at Bricata's, but I think that Goose would benefit from a more structured approach. His intuition is off for ultimate mode. I think that he is so caught up by the Guderian setting that he doesn't realize a lot of wild things he would normally pull for success on Guderian are going to lead to disaster in ultimate mode. And so he has a lot of issues with units getting sniped because they're in trucks. So he's got some issues with repeatability, but he's also kind of been running these scenarios first, so he's getting the brunt of the AI behavior that he doesn't understand that well. And I think he would do a lot better if he replayed from the beginning. And I'll just point out, I think it's a lot important to him about repeatability. I think what's important is he wants to show that you can achieve success in scenarios that are deemed too difficult. I also wonder if he's relying on artillery too much. You'll see that I do some things without artillery support, and Bricata is also doing some things without artillery support. I'm getting more and more flamboyant about it because sometimes you just need to take risks, kind of like in war. Bricata, he relies on his Manstein approach, so he's established how to get a decisive victory on Manstein through 40. And it's very clear when you watch him play on ultimate mode, he believes Manstein is the biggest issue, and he builds his core accordingly. I disagree with him on that. I think he might run into issues if he relies too much on his Manstein approach. Ultimate mode is a whole different animal, and I think at some point he's going to run into an issue. But he's a flexible guy. I think when he starts to realize things aren't working, he'll try something different. He does not exploit map mechanics to the fullest. So probably one of the big differences between me and Bricata is I do things he might call cheating. Goose thinks is perfectly fine, but Bricata would say is cheating. I am exploiting knowledge that I have gained from playthroughs or have been told to me about the mechanics of a map. He's probably not going to like what I did at Abonimel. He's probably not going to like what I did at Reims. He's probably perfectly happy with what my approach to Arras. I think he would be perfectly happy with that. But I don't know if he likes the idea of exploiting trigger mechanics on maps. On the other hand, this is ultimate mode. It's brutally unfair, so I don't have any sympathy for the game. So, that might cause issues for him later. We'll see. One of the things about his approach to maps, he has very robust plans. So that means his plans are designed to mostly work out very well regardless of rolls and weather. I also think I'm getting better at that as well. But the biggest thing is he has super strong intuition about where to put units, what's possible, and what kind of core do you need for a map. This is an area I'm getting better at, but I'm very far behind him. Uh, and at a certain point, you watch him play, and his intuition is paying off over and over and over again. So he just understands this game very well, and it's helping him a lot on Ultimate Mode. I would also point out he's not doing anything too wild, a little more artillery than usual, maybe a little more armor than usual, but he is pretty much using a traditional core. I don't expect that to stay that way. I think at a certain point he's just going to throw in the towel and buy some more artillery, but we will see. My approach, it's more mathematical, and it's very clear there's deliberate practice when I show you my approaches. I play these maps again and again. I'm using a Soren method, but I'm handicapped because I don't have a photographic memory. And what I like about this approach is I'm grinding my way to a more objective, maximum way to play a scenario. I'm discovering hidden information in the scenarios. I'm discovering how to push the game to its limits. There's more tactics I'm discovering. I'm showing new farming techniques. It feels like somehow Ultimate Mode is really bringing out the scientific elements of the game. At Reams I showed a farming technique that you don't really see people use. So, I got one of my 7-1 guns to 1 star after 2 scenarios because of my farming technique. So there's a lot of stuff I'm discovering. I am a big fan of Soren T. Jerry's playthroughs. You should check him out. He's got he has figured out through practice how to manage open space tactical warfare. And Bricata is doing the exact same thing, but he has strong intuition. So it's very interesting. Bricata is just like that. He's just that guy that just understands how to manage open space. And Soren is the one that shows you mechanically through repetition how that works, and he's even explaining his process as he makes his moves. It's just fairly good stuff. I have a plan to try to use his methods later to help increase my survivability. But his methods rely heavily on key units being experienced and overstrengthened. I'm expecting Bricata's going to reach that conclusion very quickly as well. Goose will also reach that conclusion. There is going to be a lot of similarities in our approaches to later maps, I think, because it's Manstein. It's going to be really nasty. You're going to need key units to hold the line as you try to get your units shuffled around to deal with the chaos. And I think Soren leads the way on an efficient way to do that. What we don't know is if his method works on Manstein. That's what we don't know. So we're kind of going to be pushing the experimental part to the frontier here. I do not rely on good rolls most of the time. My first attempt, I was relying on good rolls a lot, but most of the time, if I re-roll for a roll, it's for my 7-1 guns. I want to make sure I don't miss, because the opportunities to gain experience for them is limited. So grab them every single time, and if on a clear weather day I miss, it's devastating. So I re-roll for that. I also am more trusting of the probability outcomes. I don't know if this is because I studied probability theory. I don't know if it's just because I studied a lot of econometrics, but the reality is these bad rolls people constantly complain about, they're really not, it's not that bad. On average, I could point to any scenario where someone's complaining about bad rolls and point out that earlier they got like 6 lucky rolls in a row. I would point out that I think the rolls favor the player most of the time. Not so much early war, but certainly by 41, I think the rolls are in the player's favor. And on Manstein's probably the only setting where the rolls are unfair to the player, but that's on purpose. But I have found, if you watch me play, I don't really check odds. I'm like the only YouTuber who isn't checking odds when I'm playing through a scenario. and you'll see me if it says I'm not taking damage, I kind of just attack most of the time. Even if it does say I'm taking damage, I attack most of the time. And I will point out there's a high frequency that I don't take damage, even though it says that I'm supposed to. Part of this is overstrengthened units that are experienced. I think they get more rolls, so it's really helping you uh, overcome some of these bad Manstein effects. And I honestly can't complain about my rolls most of the time. Every now and then I'll whine, but I get over it very quickly. Uh, so I trust that I don't need to do a deep dive into every single attack. Maybe later I'll change that, but right now I feel like I'm getting really lucky on rolls. But I don't think it's luck. I think the game is designed to benefit the high initiative player. And if you're the German army, you have huge initiative, and I think it's very beneficial to have that initiative stat. Uh, my approach as well, I don't have strong intuition. It's very clear that I'm way behind Bricata on the intuitive front, and I've never had strong intuition. But some things in my favor. I finish scenarios very strongly, which is an area that Bricata can struggle with, and I can do long, forced tactical sequences, and I think I do those better than almost anyone else. And I'm not surprised by this because that is a strength of mine in chess. I am not very good at strategy in chess, but I do finish chess games very strongly, way above my rating level, and I can do long tactical sequence with ease, and I can calculate it out very accurately. So I'm not surprised to see that that's a strong suit of mine in Panzer Corps. Um, so some other problems. I try a lot of wild stuff. I even showcased a few times me trying some wild stuff. Uh, I'm doing this because I'm desperate. I want to see if I can kind of cheese the scenario. It's 50-50 whether you can get away with some of this wild stuff. But the reality is, by the time we get to 42, the ability to manage open space strategically is just, it's going to dominate everything. Um, like, you're not going to be getting away with wild stuff. You're going to have the correct core composition. You're going to have the correct understanding of unit placement. So I'm going to run into problems at some point where I'm going to have to play like Stalingrad 15 times before I finally get it. I really struggle with Stalingrad. So, um, Sword gets away with it because he just memorizes unit placement. So, he knows exactly what hacks he wants a tank on. And I mentioned this, the ability to control open space is probably my biggest problem. You can see it if you watch in my 1940 playthrough. There's almost like this weird logistics problem where I'm moving units around and I'm not sure where to put them on open spaces. And sometimes I have to restart a scenario just because I lost a unit because I put it on an open hex that it shouldn't have been put on. And it seems like this is an easy thing to manage, especially since I've played these scenarios before, but for some reason it's not an easy thing for me to manage. And I think it might actually be a problem for your average Panzer Corps player. I think what really separates good players from bad players is how to use open space to your advantage. And, Goose is interesting. He's a mixed bag. He does some, like, his Africa Corps is amazing stuff to watch. He really gets open space in that scenario. But he also gets burned a lot. He isn't a master of it, but he's very close. So, he's a good player to watch to see, especially his Africa Corps series, to see how to manage open space. But Soren and Bricata are the kings of the mountain. Those two, they somehow understand where units should go. So this is something I'm actually struggling a lot with, and it's going to kill me later. It's just literally going to get my core killed if I don't figure this out. Okay, general observations. All three of us are using artillery. Goose maybe a little bit more than the other two. I think it's all going to balance out. I think that we're going to converge asymptotically to about the same amount of artillery. All of us are using a reduced air force. The reality is, too many Panzer Corps players are using too many fighters. Fighters are not as strong as you think they are. I think it was Soren who I first realized this when I was watching him play. The reality is the fighters are really, really good at taking out bombers and less stat heavy fighters, but they start running into issues when they face English fighters, and then by the time you're getting to Stalingrad, the Russians have these Yak planes, okay, and the days of just bullying Russian aircraft is over. So if you have too many fighters, you're going to take a lot of damage on them, and you don't want to lose experience, so you have to do all these elite replacements, and it's super expensive because that's some of the most expensive equipment that you're going to have. Instead, what you really should be using fighters for, take out the garbage and then defend. You want to ambush fighter planes. And if you can't ambush a fighter plane, use your AA to clean up. You really need experienced AA to take out those fighters, and then you send your fighters in to clean up. And because of that, you don't need that many fighters. And for the most part, if they're not fighting the Air Force, they're escorting. The most important job of a fighter is to protect your bombers. So having more bombers is probably a better idea than more fighters. But all three of us know this. It's very clear that we're not doing a fighter-heavy concentration. Goose is relying on tactical bombers more. I rely on level bombers more, and I believe Bricata is going to do a combination. I think Idocles was the first one to really point out how insanely strong level bombers are. I believe Deductor does this as well. I don't see enough of the level bombers from other players. So I am happy. You see me using level bombers all over the place. I am especially using the Junker right now because that's a weaker level bomber late war. So I might as well use him when it's the best level bomber early war. I think that level bombers are going to help in Russia a lot, and I want to have 3 of them ready to rumble. Goose relies on 88s more. Now, on my Rommel, I would get 2 88s because there's definitely enough time to develop 2 88s. But because of the Guderian setting, the opportunity to farm kills for 2 88s is severely reduced. That's actually a way that I get so many kills on my 88s so quickly is I'm farming on the final turns. But farming does not happen in Ultimate Mode. So I get 1 88 and I use that one really heavily, and that should be enough to basically be equivalent to using 2 88s. Instead, I'm going to be farming kills for my 7-1s, and they're more mobile, so the opportunity for taking out aircraft is more often. And I think in the long run, it's going to pay off. I think Bricata is probably going to be closer to my approach than Goose's, but I'm not sure. He'll definitely have 188. It's just too iconic a weapon not to have, and then I don't know if he'll go for 2. He might not have as many 7-1s as me. We'll see. I use Pioneers and Grenadiers more heavily. I mean, if you've been watching me, you saw me go ape shit at Warsaw with my Pioneers. And once I got Grenadiers, I upgraded my mountain troop to a Grenadier and my regular infantry to a Grenadier. And I'm using them. I'm using some combination of my Pioneers and Grenadiers. They're the best opportunities to get kills on these guys is 1939 and 1940. Take it, get them kills, get them XP. It's going to be cheaper to do it now than later. I also think having heavy weapons infantry helps deal with the tanks more easily. Regular infantry, I think, are too weak for Ultimate Mode. And I can tell you that I feel that my Grenadiers and Pioneers are extremely strong. It's a huge investment. So I'm constantly giving these guys elite replacements, and they're much more expensive than regular infantry, but I think it's worth it in the long run. They have been, in my opinion, I think they have been doing very heavy lifting in 1940. Some of the most important units in my corps are these heavy weapons infantry. And the Pioneers are kicking ass, like always. I've noticed Bracada relies on armor. This may or may not pay off for him. I am a little worried that he's neglecting infantry. And it's going to be harder to get the experience and kills you need on infantry later in the war. So I am putting a super heavy focus on infantry right now. It looks like we're all going to use 2 scouts. I think that's the right number. We're all using paratroopers. I think I am more heavy on the paratrooper usage, but in the end, I think it will balance out. So I am very far ahead on anti-tank, anti-air, XP, and kills. I believe this will pay off. This is a huge gamble, but I believe this will pay off. Bracada is far ahead on armor XP. He's absolutely crushing it, and not just on XP, but he is racking up huge kills. The thing is, though, he's got a core that has a lot of tanks in it that are not SE, and I wonder what's going to happen to his soft cap. That's my only issue. Maybe he's going to say, fuck it, I don't care about the soft cap. I'm going to have an army of tigers kicking ass, so it doesn't matter. Goose is really focused on local tactics. I mean, he gets really caught up in, elaborate local tactics, but I think he's running into strategic issues where, yeah, you can accomplish that local tactic, but is it really what you want to do on this map? So what he really needs to do is open his mind up a bit more and get big picture. And this is something I think I'm doing better than the other two. I have a very, very big, huge picture in my mind about how the core is going to develop and what units I'm going to deploy at what scenario. I think Bracada kind of does, but I think he's more focused on the immediate needs. And he's being very successful with it, but I kind of wonder if he's going to start running into issues, because I'll get into this, but I think the Field Marshal effect is ugly. So Bracada, he's very focused. I want to show a repeatable way to play a scenario. I want to show, yes, it's Manstein, it's going to be pretty wild, but let me show you controlled chaos. He's done a very good job of that, and I expect that to continue. I am super concentrated to the point of absurdity on big picture stuff. So I am very worried about how much XP my units have, how many kills they have, and I want to buy green units as fast as possible. I just bought 4 artillery pieces at Marginal Line, right? Because I need to get those bad boys experienced. I got to get them kills. I have got to get heroes. And I got to do it as fast as I possibly can. And because of the Guderian setting, I don't have the opportunity to farm. So I'm already thinking about core composition from Poznan. Oh, I didn't spell that right. I'm going to claim, and this is my opinion, that they are not doing enough long-term core visualization. Now, Bracada will probably prove me wrong, and he's got a diabolical plan that will make everything work. Goose, on the other hand, I think is flailing. You can tell he's running out of prestige. I don't know if he's really thought hard about what's going to happen in 1942, but I don't think his core is where it needs to be. So I think Goose is going to experience a premature death. And that's not really his fault. A lot of things were discovered after he was deep into 1940, so I think his core is in trouble. So more observations. Bracada is a Scrooge. I mean, that he is absolutely not spending any money on his core. So he is blowing Goose and me out of the water on prestige for different reasons. Goose was not aggressive enough in 1939, and he's paying for that now. I was very aggressive. But not as aggressive as Bracada. I also have been buying more green units faster than him, so that strained my prestige. It's very clear to me that Bracada is playing like Manstein matters more than anything else. But he's also very well aware of the Guderian setting. What I have done is I have a deep experienced core that I have blown my life savings building up. And we'll see how successful I've been with that. I'm going to show you my core after this. I believe Field Marshal is the most important setting, and I'm very concerned about getting the 3rd star. As Goose says, what's the most important star? It's the next star. Trust me on this. That's constantly dominating my mind as I play scenarios. Am I getting closer to the next star? I got to get closer to the next star, and I don't have a lot of time. The Guderian setting is killing the opportunity for experience, so you got to push really hard. I think going from 3 to 4 is gonna break people. I'm not sure how easy it will be to do this. So like I said, 1942 is gonna be an interesting year. Goose plays like Guderian matters more than anything else, which is why he's recklessly moving forward and why he does all these crazy things. And my plan is to copy Soren's methods, but I'm running into the issue that the Field Marshal effect is dominating. It will take a while before I can copy his methods. Let's put it that way. I'm hoping that I will have a functional core by 43, but we will see. So some theory crafting. I think gaining prestige early is important. Bracada has definitively shown that's the case. You should take risks, grab as much as possible. There's certain units you don't need to worry about elite replacements. But on infantry, you definitely should to prepare you for Warsaw. In AA, get your AA in combat early and often. Get it experienced, and you can have an 88 gun at 2 stars by the end of 39, and that's going to be amazing for 1940. Ola Deer, what I've discovered is Ola Deer can stop an entire division with 1 ammo in any weather. You can watch Calais to see that. You have to have him at 2 stars, though, and then have overstrength. So Ola Deer is a one-man army. He is insane. He's just unkillable. Except if you put him on an open hex, then he can die. I am not convinced that you need to be using your tanks a lot in 1940. I think it's still very much an infantry, artillery, anti-tank AA year. I think the Panzerjägers are going to be better tank killers than the Panzer IIIs. And obviously the 88 gun is an amazing tank killer. Tanks are there to clean up on artillery, anti-aircraft, infantry, maybe a weakened medium-sized tank. But I am not really using my tanks a lot. The kills on my tanks are extremely low. And that is okay, because the fact is, all of these tanks are going to be deployed every single scenario from now on. They're going to get kills. I need to focus on my anti-tank. I need to get the kills up on the anti-tank. I need to get those guys a hero. I need to get them experienced. They are going to be quite vulnerable in 42, but not if I get them experienced. So in 1940, it's anti-tank, anti-aircraft infantry are receiving a lot of the love. So I have an approach that I'm going to get these units into combat as early as possible. I want them to take casualties. I need XP. And taking casualties can accelerate that. I will be focusing more on tanks in 41. That's definitely a year where tanks can start to take off. Here's the general progression on XP. Artillery, scouts, infantry in 39. I think scouts should be used a lot in 39 because it's the best year to use them. And I got both of them to 2 stars, so they're actually fairly robust for 1940. And then in 40, it's all of my planes are going to get a lot of love. I'm using elite replacements on my fighters all the time. Anti-tank, I'm dumping tons and tons of prestige into. I'm getting them in combat as much as possible. My AA, I'm attacking planes as much as possible. There is tank development happening, but it's extremely slow. And once you get your tanks to 2 stars, it's all fine. And then once we get into 41, it's more artillery, anti-tank, anti-aircraft. Basically everything but infantry is going to be the focus of 41. My infantry is in amazing shape. You'll see that when we get there. But basically 41 is I need to get all of my units to 3 stars. And I need to get the kill count up. I need to get heroes because I need to prepare for 42. In 42, Level bombers, tanks, and anti-tank are the big players. Those guys are key. You actually have some decent tanks by 42. And if you have Stug 3s with experience and overstrength, they are going to be very, very nasty, even on Manstein. And of course, level bombers, once you get those bad boys to 4 stars, you need to overstrengthen them so you can drain tanks down to 1 ammo. It's going to be key to making 42 not suck. Infantry development is going to slow to a crawl, but most of my infantry is going to be in pretty good shape by 42. And what this will allow me to do is to focus on 1 or 2 units and get them kills and experience, and allow me to slowly build up my corps. If I can get my infantry to 2 heroes by the end of 42, that's excellent progress. Excellent progress. And then by 43, it's anti-tanks, tanks, anti-aircraft is going to be huge. 43 is the year of anti-aircraft dominating. And level bombers, again, I think are absolutely essential for this year. You need to bring them, and you need to get in the enemy's face and drain the ammo. And you're going to need the prestige to make all of these investments. That's why I'm also using AA so early. They need experience. It's so important to help me in 43. So in 43, I'm going to overstrengthen certain types of units like Oladir, Kasha, Wensberger, and so on. They're going to be used as roadblocks. We're going to try to check the Soviet advances. We want them jammed in front of us and not sneaking around. I don't know about decisive victories in 43. I think I'm much more worried about, am I going to survive? Is my corps going to collapse in pieces around me, or am I going to survive? 43 is a year I'll get very defensive. I probably will not be very adventurous unless I have to be. This is why I am pushing so hard for experience early, because I don't want to take risks in 43. I am worried about 43 SE units and hero units that we get later. I think getting them experience is going to be hard because of the Manstein effect, but we'll see. I think it's still an open question in the long run if you want a defensive approach, a more aggressive, or a combination. Like Goose is way more aggressive than anyone else. Bracada has what I called controlled aggression. I was very defensive in my first playthrough, but now I'm much closer to Bracada. I'm aggressive and defensive depending on the needs. And as I said, Goose is going to be sticking to very aggressive wild moves, but I look at his prestige situation and I question whether that's worth it. Bracada is definitely crushing us on prestige, but he's not investing in elite replacements that much, and I do wonder if he's going to run into issues. It's an open question. We'll see. I think the biggest global maximum factor is Field Marshal, but there are years and scenarios that have local maximum effects that's dictated by Guderian and Manstein. I definitely think Guderian is a pain in the ass in 39. And you might think locally it probably there's a local max that's Guderian in 39. But I still think globally Field Marshal is dominating. I don't know if Goose has ever played Field Marshal, but it's really scary what's going on with experience. I am having a huge problem getting a 3rd star. And once I get the 3rd star, it's going to be ugly getting a 4th star. And I'm already in 1941, and I'm like, I don't even know if I can get the 4th star. So here's my updated unit composition. I got 3 movement plus 1 heroes, so I'll make those rocket artillery. Tanks hasn't changed. My scouts are still the same. Once I get an all-terrain scout car, I'll upgrade both to that. Nothing has changed on my infantry. I still have 12 infantry planned. I added 1 AA. I probably will take one from Poltova. I think just having more AA is going to be helpful later. I still have 3 anti-tanks. I will have 8 fighters at one point. The other change I made is I'm going to buy a green tactical bomber in 41. And I'm going to try to find a better tactical bomber than the one I have, because the one I have sucks. There's that. Let me start a new grand campaign. because I want to show you the progress I've made. I have to start a new one. Right. One second. Number of turns. AI strength is there. Let's see. Number of turns. AI strength. Player experience is cut in half. Player prestige is cut in half. And I want to import this one. I have 6777 in prestige. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at my units. Oh, whoops. There we go. So Oladir has 700 kills. You know, despite the fact that Oladir sits around in some scenarios doing absolutely nothing, he still has 700 kills. It's like, the thing is, Oladir is used way too much, and you should really back off on Oladir. Let other infantry units get kills. This guy's going to get 3 heroes with both hands tied behind his back, drunk, and probably fighting, you know, like 3 soldiers at once. Like, he's just... This guy is so overpowered. Don't worry about him. He's there for holding key objectives. Let's take a look at this guy. So he's at 262 and he has over 300 kills. This is really important because he could get a second hero at any point. And he's been very involved in fighting. And he got a defense hero. I don't have a lot of great heroes, but I'm not too concerned about that. I want the kills up. But he's kind of struggling to get to 3 stars. Let's take a look at my paratroopers. 251 kills. 259. And I'm giving him elite replacements all the time. Yeah, keep in mind, the things I'm about to show you is after using elite replacements all the time. And you can see getting that 3rd star is a pain in the ass. Let's take a look at this one. 236. You can see, look at the kills. This guy's got 34 deaths. 17. So where is he on experience? 242. Yeah, he's struggling on the experience front. 271. Nearing 300 kills. That's good. All of my infantry, by the way, have heroes. Let me make sure that they're labeled. Attack. I have a lot of defense heroes. Oh yeah, this should be defense +1. Let's look at my pioneers. 441 kills. This is a really big deal. I've been using my pioneers a lot because I want to get them as many kills as possible. I want to get these guys second heroes as early as possible. By the way, he just crossed 3 stars. The very final scenario, he crossed 3 stars. And you could see heavy combat. I'm very proud of this unit, but my god. You know, that's using elite replacements all the time. Take a look at this one. 356 kills. And he's only at 254 experience. So I've got to use him a lot more. I got to get that experience up. But he has been involved in a lot of things. Okay, we got Kesha. Kesha is taking a lot of casualties, but I am not using him that much. This is a shockingly low kill count, but ultimately, it's fine. Kesha's going to get a lot of kills, no problem. And notice that he's at 2 stars, so, you know, getting him to 3 stars by the end of 41 will be very easy. And he's killing things, so he's fine. Take a look. 281. Despite the fact I'm using my tanks casually, Look at how experienced they are with like low kill. Like he's taking a lot of damage, but you know I'm getting the experience I need. Once these guys are at 3 stars, they're going to be very strong. Take a look at this one. 241, 154 kills. 159 to 20, 258. So my tanks are fine, and I'm not using my tanks very heavily. That's because I want other units to get those kills. So let's look at our scouts. Look at that, 27 prestige to replace him with elite replacements. So I got over 200 kills on the scout car, and he's at 286. So he's going to get to 3 stars pretty easily and get a hero, which is good. And then this scout car has a defense +1, almost 200 kills, 263. I should easily be able to get both scout cars to 3 stars by the end of 41, which is a key number. Panzerjägers, this is an important unit. 75 kills, over 2 stars. Very big deal. Take a look at this guy. Over 2 stars, 125 kills. I'm going gangbusters with these guys. Those are kills that would have gone to my tanks if I weren't using them. Take a look at this guy. I bought this guy at Dunkirk. So over 4 scenarios, 57 kills, 157 experience. So, you know, they're going to have a lot of kills, but it will balance out. I just need to get them experience. I want all 3 at 3 stars by the end of 41. I bought this at Marginal Line, over 1 star already. 287 kills. He's going to get a hero this scenario. And he's maxed out on XP. That's the last original artillery piece without a hero. 294 kills, and he has movement +1. Can I upgrade him? Yes. I will upgrade him to Nebelwaffe. So here's the deal. Heart attack is slightly lower. Less ammo is not a big deal, and less movement. Boom. I lost the overstrength, but it was already damaged, so that doesn't bother me. Let's scroll up. This guy's got 9 kills, 1 star. Excellent. I just bought them too. 12 kills, 1 star. 9 kills, 1 star. Excellent. This is the last of my artillery. 280 to 6 kills. He has a spotting hero. Don't know what I'm going to do with him. 304 kills. Movement +1. He has overstrength on him, so I might want to wait until that goes away. Attack +1. 213 kills and no losses. These guys are going to get upgraded to 17 guns, 17 centimeters at Minsk. 158 kills, and he has an attack +1. 188 kills. He has movement +1. I will immediately... His overstrength was lost, so I will upgrade. Boom. Two Nebelwaffes with movement +1. I have a third one, but I'm going to wait for the overstrength to be lost. So, ironically, the 2 artillery pieces that got damaged, it was beneficial to me. I did this one, and then this guy's got 160 kills. The attack heroes have low kills, so that's really good, because they're going to catch up. Let's see. We've got an 88 gun, 343 kills to 9 losses, nearing 3 stars. My goal is to get that guy to like 350 maybe by the end of 41, and then set him up for 4 stars in 42. So 62 kills, over 2 stars. I got it at Lillehammer. That's pretty good. Over 2 stars, 57 kills. Got it at Albert Canal. 18 kills, 1 star, Dunkirk. Excellent. This is excellent progress. These are going to get a lot of attention this year. 158 kills. It's hard to. This is a Heinrich Barr. He's in an excellent position. He will get to 3 stars easily. He's not taking much damage, and he will catch up in kills very quickly. This guy, 326 kills, over 3 stars, a really big deal. This guy, over 3 stars, over 400 kills. And notice only 2 deaths so far. And I think this guy's from Poznan. And he has a movement +1, and he has a defense +2, which is really nice. 326 kills to 8. Notice that my fighters take way less damage than anyone else's. I feel like I've cracked the fighter code. And I'm just very good at using fighters. And Heinrich Barr has 5 kills. Yep. Having 2 3-star fighters is awesome. I got 645 kills on this guy, and he's got spotting and defense +1. That's part of the reason I'm buying another tactical bomber, because this guy sucks. But I'm not going to sell him off, because he has a chance for a 3rd hero. It might be good. This is Rudel, which we don't care about. Here's Helmut Lent. 513 kills. This is unbelievable. I am using Helmut Lent like a badass. I'm going to push hard for a 2nd hero. I hope it's defense +3. I really do. He needs it. And he's just involved and all the time. I'm always deploying Helmut Lent. I'm a big fan. The Donye, 56 kills. It's 3 stars. Excellent. It's going to get a much better version soon. The Junker has 165 kills. I'm going to keep using him to try to get a hero. And 98. I almost have 100 kills on the Heinkel. That's really impressive. So, I'm doing okay. Like, I'm going to get a hero on the level bombers for sure. Not a problem. I should mention I'm buying a new tactical bomber. What's the difference? Lower initiative, lower... Oh, wait. The only thing worse is that its soft attack is worse. Oh, yeah. We're going to buy this. And I will upgrade him. Does Helmut Lent have a better version? No. Do my fighters have a better version? Yes. I will definitely upgrade all the fighters. Less ammo, not a big deal. Less air attack. But the higher initiative is a really big deal. And also, my fighters, for the most part, aren't supposed to be engaging enemy fighters head-on. I don't think I want to upgrade these yet. I can't, anyway. Okay. Yeah, there's no upgrade. There's this, but I don't care about that. Scout cars do not have an upgrade. The problem with the scout car, it's just garbage. This 3rd scout car is hot garbage. So then we've got tanks. I definitely want the best tank. I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I'm getting the best equipment. Bracada can judge me, but it's ultimate mode. It's not fair. And then you need a much better version, and this version's much better. Yeah. I will also give him a couple points of overstrength. He deserves it. And these guys do not need upgrades. So I blew through like 1200 prestige, but you know, it's the beginning of a scenario. It's bound to happen. The other thing that I will do is overstrengthen these guys a lot. You're going to want them to be overstrengthened. So yeah, I've blown through a lot of prestige, but I think it's worth it. So there's my core. I'm very happy with where it is. It's going to be a less infantry heavy focused. It's going to be anti-tank, tank. It's going to be everything but infantry in 41. So I will prepare for this scenario. Let me know what you think about the video. And until next time, Richard out.